Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parame Satyamayi Parame Satyamayi Parame Satyam Jnanam Satyam Jnanam Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda Jyotir Aravinda. So, Sri Aurobindo often uses the term deathless rose in his writings. In Savitri, the term is used, and various other 2-3 other places I've read the term deathless rose. So, rose is always a symbol of love, love in relation to the divine, in the parlance of Mother and Sri Aurobindo, and deathless because it is a presence or a being which is eternal. So, the deathless rose is often a metaphor for a divine presence which is always and eternally there behind everything. And in one sense, all avatars are like a concretization, a physical manifestation of this love which descends into the earth to make earth conscious of it. So, we go to the end of the PDF. There's a beautiful story of a Westerner, Rhoda Coke, and her darshan with Mother and Sri Aurobindo. So she writes, at last, it was the morning of November 24th. That's of course the Siddhi day. And at Golconda, rumors flew. She was obviously put up at Golconda. Although thousands had now arrived for this darshan, it was said that Sri Aurobindo was ill and might find it impossible to appear. Then at the last minute we were told he was well enough. A long line led from the main building around the block, people of every color, every style of dress, government officials and high-ranking professors, young and old, from dozens of countries wanted to see the philosopher sage Sri Aurobindo. Each of us finally climbed the stairs to the floor where at the end of a long narrow room, Sri Aurobindo in white and Mother in a gold sari sat side by side upon a slightly raised platform. As a Westerner, the idea of merely passing by these two with nothing being said had struck me as a bit ridiculous. I was still unfamiliar with the Hindu idea that such a silent meeting could afford an intensely spiritual impetus. I watched as I came up in line, and I noted that the procedure was to stand quietly before the two of them for a few silent moments, then to move on at a gesture from Sri Aurobindo. What happened next was completely unexpected. As I stepped into a radius of about 4 feet, there was a sensation into moving into some kind of a force field. Intuitively, I knew it was the force of love, but not what ordinary humans usually mean by the term. These two, she means Mother and Sri Aurobindo, were geared straight up. They were not paying attention to me as ordinary parents might have done. Yet this unattachment seemed just the thing that healed. So she sensed a love very different from human love. Human love is all about I can't live without you and all that. But she sensed a love which had no attachment. And because there was no attachment, it's just the thing that healed. Suddenly I loved them both as spiritual parents. Then all thoughts ceased. I was perfectly aware of where I was. It was not hypnotism, as one Stanford friend later suggested. It was simply that during those few minutes, my mind became utterly still. It seemed that I stood there a very long and uncounted time, for there was no time. Only many years later did I describe this experience as my having experienced the timeless in time. So the energy of love is actually the energy of light, and there are so many parallels between spirituality and science. Science says at the speed of light, time stands still. There's no time when you're traveling at the speed of light. So when you're in the space of this love, it's like timeless time. When there at the darshan, there was not the least doubt in my mind that I had met two people who had experienced what they claimed. They were Gnostic beings. They had realized this new consciousness, which Sri Aurobindo called the supramental. Later, this same experience made me understand what Heidegger meant by standing presence. So now we come to Savitri, page 278. Between, behind our life, the deathless rose. So what this lady experienced in Mother and Sri Aurobindo's presence, it's there everywhere. It's in the ground, it's in the air, it's in every particle of matter. This presence of divine love is the deathless rose. So between, behind our life, between our lives, behind our lives, the deathless rose. Across the covert air, covert is hidden, what is not visible to our eyes. Across the covert air, the spirit breathes a body of cosmic beauty and joy. What is this deathless rose? Beyond the hidden air that the spirit breathes. To the spirit, this deathless rose is visible, but we can't see it. So beyond the covert air the spirit breathes a body of cosmic beauty and joy. This deathless rose is an all-pervading body of beauty and joy. Unseen, unguessed by the blind, suffering world. The world is blind with ignorance and it suffers because it doesn't see the presence of this deathless rose, and it doesn't even guess that it exists. Behind all the ugliness that's visible to the physical seeing, the blind, ignorant world doesn't even guess that there's this body of beauty and joy. Climbing from nature's deep surrendered heart. So this deathless rose, which is love, which is aspiration, it climbs from nature's deep surrendered heart. It blooms forever at the feet of God, fed by life's sacrificial mysteries. So I was just speaking to a friend of mine today whose husband was very, very intellectual, and very intelligent, and so found it very difficult to believe. He wanted to believe, but for him intellect was God. And then he came into a very, very sticky situation which caused him tremendous, tremendous anxiety. And there was no solution in sight. So then he started coming here, he started making a connection with Mother. He went to Pondicherry. The day he came back, the next day there was a call which offered a resolution to his problem. So my friend was saying that sometimes we need to be whacked so much to get sense into our head. And I was just thinking how God must be planning to give the exact amount of difficulty, creating the exact space where at that time he can go to Pondicherry, creating this planning that when he comes back he gets a call which resolves the situation. So there must be so much planning to everything in our lives. And that is so also in Savitri, not here, there's another beautiful line where it says, it is the God presence inside us. It guards for us our fate in depths within. Our fate is what's going to happen to us. We feel scared because of the randomness of what could happen to us. And the worst case of what could happen to us scares us. But the God presence inside guards for us in depths within, where sleeps the eternal seed of transient things. This God presence is eternal. It's the deathless rose. And it's the eternal seed of transient things. Transient things are things that come and go, the circumstances of our life. But those circumstances are planned and orchestrated from this deathless seed, which is guarding our fate. It's planning. I mean, if this person looks back, he'll see how much intricate planning God did just to get him to believe. And once he believed, the problem was resolved. So it's such a beautiful line. It guards for us in depths within, where sleeps the eternal seed of transient things. So the same thing is here. It blooms forever at the feet of God, fed by life sacrificial mysteries. These are life sacrificial mysteries. The pain we go through, it's like homage being offered to the Havan, and they are mysterious. We don't understand them. If we look back, we see really how perfect every step of the way was. So this deathless rose blooms forever at the feet of God, fed by life sacrificial mysteries. Here too, so Sri Aurobindo is saying here in us too, its bud is born in the human breast. The psychic being is the bud of the deathless rose within us. Then by a touch, a presence or a voice, the world is turned into a temple ground. Like for this lady Rhoda, 1 second, a few seconds before the avatar, and she actually experiences the force field of love. So then by a touch, a presence or a voice, the world is turned into a temple ground, because everything reveals the deathless rose. Everything is the divine presence. Every ground I walk on is sacred ground. The world is turned into a temple ground, and all discloses the unknown beloved. In an outburst of heavenly joy and ease, life yields to the divinity within. When this happens, see, Sri Aurobindo is saying in us too, the bud of the deathless rose is there. But maybe it needs the touch of grace, a guru's touch, for it to blossom. And when it blossoms, the whole world becomes a temple ground. and all discloses the unknown beloved, and life yields to the divinity within and gives the rapture offering of its all, and the soul opens to felicity, the soul opens to self-existent joy. A bliss is felt that can never wholly cease. Then you feel happy not because A happens or B didn't happen, but because it's the nature of the deathless rose within us. Its very fabric is joy. It's Satchidanand. So a bliss is felt that can never wholly cease. A sudden mystery of secret grace flowers, goldening our earth of red desire. So when this deathless rose blossoms, a sudden mystery of secret grace, we can't understand it, it's a mystery. It flowers, and goldening, golden is the color of the supramental, and red is the color of our Mooladhara chakra, our lowest chakra, which is to do with desires. So flowers goldening our red earth of desires. Our desires are transmuted into something of the higher life. It's a very beautiful passage. I'm reading it again without explanation. Between, behind our life, the deathless rose. Across the covert air, the spirit breathes. A body of cosmic beauty and joy, unseen, unguessed by the blind, suffering world, climbing from nature's deep surrendered heart, it blooms forever at the feet of God, fed by life's sacrificial mysteries. Here too its bud is born in human breasts, then by a touch, a presence or a voice, the world is turned into a temple ground, and all discloses the unknown beloved. In an outburst of heavenly joy and ease, life yields to the divinity within and gives the rapture offering of its all, and the soul opens to felicity. A bliss is felt that never can wholly cease. A sudden mystery of secret grace flowers, goldening our earth of red desire. Now this is Mother on Sri Aurobindo's thoughts and aphorisms. She writes, you must be able to see the evil or the ugliness without suffering from it. A big thing to us, because if we see evil or ugliness, our first reaction is, I want to run away from it, I want to fight it. Fight or flight is the only response we really know. But Mother says you must be able to see evil or ugliness without suffering from it, without being shocked or disturbed by it. Suffering is one thing, but she's saying don't even be shocked or disturbed by it. You see it from a height where these things do not exist. What does she mean by this? You see it from a height where these things do not exist. Just think for a moment. What is Mother inviting us to do? When evil and ugliness meets our vision, what is it to see it from a height where these things do not exist? Nay, but what is it to see it from a height where these things do not exist? If you see it like that, you won't react. But how do we see it like that?
Detached.
Yeah, but They do exist, right? How do we see it from a height where they don't exist? How do I deny what I'm seeing before my eyes? How? Huh? How? But how?
Seeing the one in it.
Seeing the one in it, yes, but how does one see the one in it? That's true. The only way to not get disturbed by it is to see the divine in it or to see the one in it. But the question is how?
That will happen if you look at it from a higher consciousness.
From a higher consciousness. If we see it through the lens of our thought, it's impossible. Because through the lens of our mental thought, we'll only see dualities of good, bad, fortunate, unfortunate. We can't see truth as it is. But if our thoughts fall silent, and in that silence, the higher consciousness that we really are, the Ravi that we really are, if that arises, that sees everything as God. But in the absence of that, we have to start where we are. We do live with a chattering mind. We don't have a mind silent enough to see the truth as it is. In that case, at least I begin by not believing my thoughts. If a thought tells me that this is terrible and I have strong judgments about things, at least I know from my past experience that most of my very correct seeming judgments have been wrong. So at least instead of putting an absolute full stop at the end of my judgment, I can put a question mark. I'm convinced it's like this, but who knows? Do I really know anything with my thoughts? I don't. So one is to disbelieve the thoughts, and two is to remind myself, okay, I haven't seen everything as God, but my Guru has said everything is God. And if I'm taking them as my Guru, then I make a leap of faith to believe. If they are saying this person who's shouting at me, who's making my life so difficult is God, then am I getting so carried away by the illusion of this being that I'm disregarding my Guru's Adesh? That's one of the fundamental things Sri Aurobindo says again and again, that a recurring theme of meditation in his integral yoga is to contemplate that everything is the divine. He even says so soberingly in Synthesis of Yoga that any emotion you feel, remember you're feeling it towards God, because everyone is God. So any negative emotion you're feeling towards any person, you're feeling it towards the mother, you're feeling it towards God. So at least this constant smaran that I don't want to believe my thoughts, and I want to believe what my Guru has said, that however unlikely it seems to me that behind this ugliness there can be God, there has to be God. So you see it from a height where these things do not exist, but you have the conscious perception of it. You are not affected by it, you are free. So sages have lived like that. We know that story of Ramakrishna Paramahansa. We know he lived in a constant state of mother consciousness. And once when a snake came and slithered over it, he smiled, looked at the snake and said, "Oh mother, why have you come to me like this?" And of course the snake slithered away. When you see the divine in everything, it can't harm you. So a friend of mine shared that he has a great sort of feeling of right and wrong. Normally in his normal consciousness, he feels what's wrong is wrong and he has to fight for the underdogs. Underdogs are the people who are losing the battle. And once when he was out in the wilderness, his mind had gone into a very beautiful, wide, quiet space of feeling that everything is the divine. And he saw two dogs fighting, and normally his instinctive reaction would be feeling bad for the underdog. That's where the term comes from, the dog which is under, which is being defeated. But he's saying in that state, I didn't feel that usual reaction. I just felt the underdog is also the divine. The dog which is attacking him is also the divine. It's the divine playing his Leela with the divine. And he had no reaction, which amazed him, because normally he always has a great feeling for people who are being put down. But that's a living example of what this is. You see from a height where these things do not exist, but you have a conscious perception of it. You are not affected by it, you are free. This is the first step. The second step is to be positively conscious of the supreme good and supreme beauty behind all things. So first step is you don't get affected by it, and when you don't get affected by it, you see the supreme good and supreme beauty behind all that is. You see that everything is part of the plan. You actually experience that it guards for us our fate from within, where sleeps the eternal seed of transient things. So within each form, that seed is there and is planning the transient things that are going to happen. So then nothing is ugly, it's all part of the great plan. When you see him, you're able to perceive him behind this mask and this distortion. Even this ugliness, this wickedness, this evil is a disguise of something which is essentially beautiful or good, luminous, pure. Then comes the true collaboration. For when you have this vision, that even behind the ugly, there is the deathless rose. When you live in this consciousness, it also gives you the power to draw that down into the manifestation, to the earth, and to bring it into contact with what now distorts and disguises. So that little by little this distortion and this disguise are transformed by the influence of the truth that is behind. See, even quantum physics says that everything exists as possibilities, but the observer's gaze, whatever it focuses on, it draws it out into existence. Now, if in my gaze there is a vision that this too is divine, I will draw that divine out from that person. If I return hate with hate and anger with anger, it's just a snowballing effect. Negativity just goes on increasing. So the first step when you're confronted with ugliness, negativity, move heaven and earth, but don't let it spoil your inner vibe, because the moment your inner vibe goes out of balance, everything outside is going to go more out of balance. But if you hold on to your peace inside, if you hold on to the thought, no, mother isn't that person also, and she will control that person to harm me only as much as is good for my growth. I feel very defensive and my self-protective mechanism comes up, right? That if I don't fight back, this person is really going to harm me. But suppose I drop that. Suppose I really remember that my most powerful defense is my consciousness. If my consciousness gets compromised, I'll be open to every possible attack. But if my consciousness is anchored in place, then it's up to mother to protect me. And after all, she's the antaryami, the inner controller. She's controlling everything from inside them. She will not let them harm me. See, if I react, the whole purpose of mother making that person behave like this is to pull out my samskaras of reactivity. So long as I keep reacting, mother will keep sending me that trigger because she wants me to overcome the reactivity. But if I actually don't react over a period of time, I'm not saying these are sweeping statements. It's not that once I don't react and the person will change overnight, not something so dramatic. But over a period of time, when I don't react, the person will trigger me less and less. I'm not saying react in words, but react in a way that it doesn't change my inner wholeness. Then over a period of time, the mother in that person doesn't need to trigger that person to behave like that with me again and again. Yeah?
One question. That when we say everything is divine, everything is part of the divine plan, then even when we believe the narratives of the mind and we go along, even isn't that also?
That's also part of the divine plan to give me pain by going through the narratives till I wake up. The point of the narratives is to give me just as much pain as I need till I wake up from them.
But we can put in the effort of by through knowledge or through faith. As
That's what Sri Aurobindo defines yoga as accelerated evolution. Normally, mother gives that beautiful painting, no, if this is the starting point and that is the ending point, normal person will go like this, like this, like this and reach here. But when you're with the mother and walking the sunlit path, it's a straight line. So we want to take all those detours, that's our call. So then comes the true collaboration, mother says. For when you have this vision, this perception, when you live in this consciousness, it also gives you the power to draw that down into the manifestation, to earth, to bring it into contact with what now distorts and disguises. So that little by little, this distortion and this disguised are transformed. So suppose I'm facing a very big distortion of a truth. All of us are a truth that is distorted. Suppose I'm confronting a person who's a huge distortion of the truth, and I don't get carried away by the appearance of distortion, but I have my gaze fixed on the truth in that person. Then I'm actually making that truth come forward and manifest in life. You don't know, but your guru has told you that the truth of every person is that they are divine. So take your guru's word for it. Further, these are Sri Aurobindo's words. There is in front in man a heart of vital emotions similar to the animals if variously developed. Its emotions are governed by egoistic passion. See, we are so similar to animals. Animals mark territories. We mark territories in human beings. You're mine. You can't talk to so and so. You can't do this. We are not actually very different from animals. Its emotions are governed by egoistic passion, blind instinctive affections, and all the play of the life impulses with their imperfections, perversions, often sordid degradations. A heart besieged and given over to lusts, desires, wraths, intense or fierce demands, or little greeds and mean pettiness. Sometimes even I wonder at how petty my thoughts get, right? Of an obscure and fallen life force and debased by its slavery to any and every impulse. This mixture of the emotive heart and the sensational hungering vital creates in man a false soul of desire. So Sri Aurobindo calls that the desire soul, not the real soul that we are. It is this that is the crude and dangerous element which the reason rightly distrusts and feels a need to control. Even though the actual control or other coercion it succeeds in establishing over our raw and insistent vital nature remains always very uncertain and deceptive. That's why they say that when your emotions are playing havoc with you, listen to your mind, because mental reason is a little above your emotions. Emotions is vital, it's the lower rung of evolution. Mind is more logical. So my emotions are saying, give it to her, lash out at her. But my mind is saying there'll be consequences to lashing out. Hold your tongue, sleep over it. So that's why mental control has a place in it, because the mind is in that sense a little higher in the evolutionary rung than uncontrolled vital emotions. But that's, as he says, a very small control. It's a very uncertain and deceptive control. Beyond a point, you can't really control your emotions with your thoughts. But the true soul of man is not there, not in the desire soul. It is in the true invisible heart, hidden in some luminous cave of the nature. He's talking about the psychic being. So the true soul, it's the true invisible heart hidden in some luminous cave of the nature. There, under some infiltration of the divine light, is our soul, a silent, inmost being of which few are even aware. For if all have a soul, few are conscious of their true soul or feel its direct impulse. There dwells the little spark of the divine which supports the obscure mass of our nature, and around it grows the psychic being, the formed soul or the real man within us, the Purusha within us. It is this psychic being in him grows, and the movements of the heart reflect its divinations and impulsions, that man becomes more and more aware of his soul, ceases to be a superior animal. So Sri Aurobindo is saying you cannot convert the animal vital nature with only the mind. You have to go deep within, find the psychic being and let its influence come forward and transform the animal nature that we have. Awakening to glimpses of the Godhead within him admits more and more its intimations of a deeper life and consciousness, an impulse towards things divine. So I remember I had an uncle who was a very good man, but he belonged to that old school, spare the rod and spoil the child. So he used to keep big sticks and he used to beat his sons for little things. Good father in every other way, but petrified of his children getting spoiled. That was the constant fear. So he would beat his sons. And then he went to Pondicherry and he met the mother, like this lady I said in the beginning, for just maybe those days she wasn't talking much. It was towards the end of her bodily life. She just looked into his eyes, and he says he came out of the room and he saw colored lit up specks in the air, and he would see that for I don't know how many days. And he started crying, and he says the tears didn't stop for hours, and they weren't unhappy tears, they just didn't stop. And after that, he never lifted the rod on his children. And he became the most gentle. How did this happen? 1 minute of meeting, not even a minute, it must have been seconds. But obviously the mother is such a powerful crystallization of the psychic being. She's the sun from which we kindle all our suns. That a psychic being came forward, and then he didn't need to do anything. He didn't need to fight his anger. He didn't need his mind to tell him this is right, this is wrong. He just couldn't lift the rod again on his children. So that's how powerful your psychic being is, and that's why it's so important to work on the sadhana of the psychic being. It is one of the decisive moments of the integral yoga when the psychic being, liberated, brought out from the veil to the front, can pour the full flood of its divinations, seeings and impulsions on the mind, life and body of man, and begins to prepare the upbuilding of divinity in earthly nature. Now this again is Sri Aurobindo. Now certainly the divine must be a certitude, not only as concrete but more concrete than anything sensed by ear or eye or touch in the world of matter. But it is a certitude not of mental thought but of essential experience. So this reminds me, we know that before Swami Vivekananda was called Swami Vivekananda, he was called Naren. And he was again very intellectual, and every sage he met, he wasn't interested in their philosophies. He would ask them, "Sir, have you seen God?" And they would all give him very unsatisfactory answers. I mean, something vague. He was never satisfied with them. Then one day he met Ramakrishna and he went and asked him, "Sir, have you seen God?" And Ramakrishna said, "Yes, I have seen God, in fact more concretely than I see you in front of me." That's what Sri Aurobindo is saying here. The divine must be a certitude, not only as concrete but more concrete than anything sensed by ear or eye or touch in the world of matter. But it is a certitude not of mental thought but of essential experience. When the peace of God descends on you, when the divine presence is there within you, when Ananda rushes on you like a sea, when you are driven like a leaf before the wind by the breath of the divine force, when love flowers out from you on all creation, when divine knowledge floods you with a light which illumines and transforms in a moment all that was before dark, sorrowful and obscure, when all that is becomes part of the one reality, when the reality is all around you, you feel at once by the spiritual contact, by the inner vision, by the illumined and seeing thought, by the vital sensation, and even by the very physical sense. Everywhere you see, hear, touch only the divine, only the deathless rose. Then you can much less doubt it or deny it than you can deny or doubt daylight or air or the sun in heaven. For of these physical things you cannot be sure, but they are what your senses represent them to be. But in concrete experiences of the divine, doubt is impossible. Further, Sri Aurobindo says, but the decisive experiences, earlier he's talked about, like for my uncle, this was a decisive experience, that one moment with the mother. He could never doubt the divine again after that. But the decisive experiences cannot be brought. The permanence of a new state of consciousness in which they will be normal cannot be secured if the mind is always interposing its own reservations, prejudgments, ignorant formulas, or if it insists on arriving at the divine certitude as it would at the quite relative truth of mental conclusions, like the divine exists if everything I want I get. Divine exists if everything is smooth sailing for me. If I have those concepts of the divine, I won't come to this divine certitude. By reasoning, doubt, inquiry, and all other paraphernalia of ignorant feeling and fumbling around after knowledge, these greater things can only be brought by the progressive opening of a consciousness quieted, turned steadily towards spiritual experience. So we cannot have this decisive experience of the divine unless we have an opening of a consciousness which is quiet and full of aspiration. That's what he means, turn steadily towards spiritual experience. So silence and a constant aspiration for the divine are the two conditions for having this decisive experience. If you ask why the divine has so disposed it on this highly inconvenient basis, inconvenient for the human mind, very inconvenient to be quiet, and very inconvenient to be in a state of constant aspiration. So Sri Aurobindo is saying, if you ask why the divine has so disposed it on these highly inconvenient bases, it is a futile question. For this is nothing other than a psychological necessity imposed by the very nature of things. The nature of things is such that you need to go through these two preconditions. It is so because these experiences of the divine are not mental constructions. They can't be thought of. Not vital movements. They are not, in bhakti we have all this vira and sobbing and dancing and jumping around. So Sri Aurobindo says they are not these vital movements. They are essential things. Not things merely thought, but realities, not mentally felt, but felt in our very underlying substance and essence. So because the divine as a pure experience exists in a realm beyond thought, that's why it's essential to quieten thoughts. I would ask one simple question of those who would make the intellectual mind the standard and judge of spiritual experience. So, very often we are judging the divine with our mind, no? Like suppose I haven't been able to go to Pondi for a year or two, my mind will say, oh, mother's not calling me, mother doesn't love me. But it's not like that. We never know the real reason why these things happen, and sometimes when she doesn't call us, she's loving us the most. So Sri Aurobindo is asking, I would ask one simple question of those who would make the intellectual mind the standard and judge of spiritual experience. Is the divine something less than the mind, or is it something greater? What's the answer? It's obviously greater. Is mental consciousness with its groping inquiry, endless argument, unquenchable doubt, stiff and unplastic logic, something superior or even equal to the divine consciousness, or is it something inferior in its action and status? So Sri Aurobindo is saying, if the divine consciousness is greater, then if the mental consciousness is greater, he's saying this tongue in cheek, then there is no reason to seek after the divine. If it is equal, then spiritual experience is superfluous. If it is inferior, how can it challenge, judge, make the divine stand as an accused or a witness before its tribunal? Summon it to appear as a candidate for admission. How can you do this to me? We often fight with mother. This was very wrong. You shouldn't have ever done this to me. So Sri Aurobindo is saying, how can you question an intelligence superior with your inferior mental intelligence. Is it so difficult to see similarly that the divine consciousness must be something infinitely wider, more complex than the human mind, filled with greater powers and lights? The simple fact is there that spirit and mind are not the same thing, and that it is a spiritual consciousness into which the yogin has to enter if he wants to be in permanent contact or union with the divine. It is not then a freak of the divine or a tyranny to insist on the mind recognizing its limitations, quieting itself, giving up its demands, and opening and surrendering to a greater light than it can find on its own obscurer level. What the mind must do, Sri Aurobindo said what the mind mustn't do, it mustn't question the divine, period. But what the mind must do, this doesn't mean that the mind has no place at all in spiritual life, but it means that it cannot be even the main instrument, much less the authority to whose judgment all must submit itself, including the divine. Mind must learn from the greater consciousness it is approaching and not impose its own standards on it. It has to receive illumination, open to a higher truth, admit a greater power that doesn't work according to its mental canons, surrender itself, and allow its half light, half darkness to be flooded from above, till where it was blind it can see, where it was deaf it can hear, where it was insensible it can feel, and where it was baffled, uncertain, questioning, disappointed, it can have joy, fulfillment, certitude, and peace. So, this reminds me of a story of somebody in the ashram. I won't name him because I'd like to keep him private. But very often we set off thinking we'll do things with our mind. So this person, he grew up with the mother, and the mother used to see him every year for his birthday. And one year she was very ill and she didn't see him on his birthday, and he was internally very upset because one more year till he'd see the mother, and that was something that really made him sad. And then one day he was cycling, and he was cycling towards the playground to exercise there, and suddenly his cycle took a turn to the right. So he thought, I only must have taken the turn. Chalo, I won't go to the playground, I'll go somewhere else. He was heading for that somewhere else, and again his cycle took a turn, and he ended up at the ashram. So, and then when he was at the ashram, some people called him, oh, come here, we need your help. There's a lady who's just had an operation, and mother says as soon as her operation is done, bring her up to my room. And the person who was supposed to help carry her up isn't here, so can you help? So he helped her up, and he got to spend a long time in the mother's room. Now his mind had thought he'd go to the playground and do his evening routine. But there's a power greater than the mind which actually turned his cycle, not once but twice, and took him where he needed to go. And another personal sharing this year, 15th, which just went, I don't know why I had this notion that 15th I should be in Bombay and come to Sarkar. So I was in Pondicherry with the children, and I had booked my ticket to come back by 14th, so that 15th I'd be here. But I don't know how mother overruled everything, and I ended up being 15th at Pondicherry. And all this mental thinking that no, I should be at Sarkar on the 15th, etc., Something bigger than us controls us and makes us do exactly what it wants us to do. So in Savitri, there's a beautiful line where the mother is called our beloved despot, tyrant, because whatever she wants, she will do. And thank God for that. So, but if this total conversion is to be done, there must be a consecration of our actions and outer movements as much as of our mind and heart to the divine. A hidden power is the true Lord and overruling observer of our acts. Exactly what we said. A hidden power is the true law, overruling. What does it mean to overrule? Overrules our decisions. In court, he says, no objection, overruled. So all our thoughts are overruled by this power. Overruling observer of our acts, and only he knows, through all the ignorance and perversion and deformation brought in by the ego, their entire sense and ultimate purpose. There must be effected a complete transformation of our limited and distorted egoistic life and works into a larger and direct outpouring of a greater divine life, will, energy that now secretly supports us. So secretly it's doing what it needs to do, but conscious collaboration is when it's not secretly done, when we can know its will and we act according to its will. This greater will and energy must be made conscious in us and master. No longer must it remain as now only a superconscious upholding and permitting force. There must be achieved an undistorted transmission through us of the all-wise purpose and process of a now hidden, omniscient, all-knowing power and omnipotent knowledge which will turn into its pure, unobstructed, happily consenting and participating channel of all our transmuted nature. And the last passage we have, it's from Savitri, page 52. All that transpires on earth and all beyond are parts of an illimitable plan, an endless plan. The one keeps in his heart and knows alone, the one with a capital O, that is God. God keeps in his heart and knows alone. Our outward happenings have their seed within. This is a recurrent theme, no? Earlier I shared with you a line. It guards for us our fate in depths within, where sleeps the eternal seed of transient things. So this eternal seed is the seed within from which our outward happenings come. Our outward happenings have their seed within. And even this random fate, our fate seems so random to us sometimes. No, why did this happen? This was so unnecessary. So many times we say it was not necessary for you to have spoken like that. It was not necessary that this should have happened. So he says, even this random fate that imitates chance. See, look at his choice of words. It appears to be chance. And what is it to imitate? Chance? Appear to be chance but not really be chance. Yeah, to imitate chance means it's appearing that it just happened, but it's not really that. And even this random fate that imitates chance, this mass of unintelligible is what my intelligence can't understand. This mass of unintelligible results are the dumb graphs of truths that work unseen. The laws of the unknown create the known. What we know are created by occult laws which we don't know. The law of cause and effect, the law of grace, you can't call grace a law, but yes, it's very much there in the matrix of the law. The law of the eternal good. There are so many occult laws crisscrossing and making things happen outside. The laws of the unknown create the known. The events that shape the appearance of our lives are a cipher. Cipher is like a code of subliminal quiverings. Subliminal is what we can't see, quiverings are vibrations. He's talking about quantum level vibrations. The events that shape the appearance of our lives are a cipher of subliminal quiverings, which rarely we surprise. Surprise here means know or vaguely feel, are an outcome of suppressed realities that hardly rise into material day. They are born from the spirit sun of hidden powers, digging a tunnel through emergency. What is the emergency? The emergency is our need to grow. So the sun of spirit's power are digging a tunnel through emergency and making things happen. So the events that shape the appearance of our lives are born from the spirit sun of hidden powers, digging a tunnel through an emergency. But who shall pierce into the cryptic gulf and learn what deep necessity of the soul determined casual deed and consequence? So whatever is my external circumstance, it's a deep necessity of my soul. I need that experience at a soul level. So he's saying we are so steeped in ignorance that we don't see this, but who will pierce into the cryptic gulf and learn what deep necessity of the soul determined casual deed and consequence? So we'll end with this. I'll just read this passage without explanation. All that transpires on earth and all beyond are parts of an illimitable plan. The one keeps in his heart and knows alone. Our outward happenings have their seed within. And even this random fate that imitates chance, this mass of unintelligible results, are dumb graphs of truths that work unseen. The laws of the unknown create the known. The events that shape the appearance of our lives are a cipher of subliminal quiverings, which rarely we surprise or vaguely feel, are an outcome of suppressed realities that hardly rise into material day. They are born from the spirit sun of hidden powers, digging a tunnel through an emergency. But who shall pierce into the cryptic gulf and learn what deep necessity of the soul determined casual deed and consequence? So with our eyes shut, a collective aspiration that there's a constant smaran, a remembrance that everything, every appearance hides the divine presence. And if we keep this remembrance, even when we are confronted with things that are not so pleasant, that vision will actually change the not so pleasant appearance. The mother says you confront the vilest of human beings anchored in the highest in you, the highest in that opposite person is obliged to come forward. When I look for the mother in an unpleasant appearing person, the mother in that person is obliged to come forward. So let me keep this in my mind, and that person can sometimes be my own self. Sometimes when I don't like myself, so beautiful to remember that I am also the mother's light. And if I look for the mother in myself, through all my smallness and the pettiness, the mother in me is obliged to come forward. Hands together in a namaste, 3 ohms. Om.